Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Lift Tower. My name's Charles McGilvran, and as always, I'm joined by Jess Cabell and Simon Stacey. We're a fans podcast for fans by fans of Northampton Saints. It's a pretty good weekend. Pretty good weekend again. We're getting pretty used to this, aren't we now?
Yeah, I was going to say, you just need to just keep repeating just the start of the podcast every week because the last few weeks have just been insane, haven't they? Boys have been amazing. And again, yeah, what can we say? It's just an absolutely awesome performance. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, in almost all instances, other than the Bath result, you can only beat. It's sort of the case if you're going to beat what's put in front of you. Because the opposition. I mean, and to be fair, that Bath team just didn't turn up. However good we were, Bath team didn't turn up. But none of the teams we played for a little while. How much of it is our simple brilliance versus the actual abysmal or weakened sides. I think there's a really good article in our. We're proudly supported by the Rugby paper, and there's a good article in it in this week's paper about. It's no sort of surprise that Quins are this bad because of the number of players that they've lost over the last few years, and the list is significant. But I mean, there's something far more wrong. There's something far worse than that. I think. I mean, the talent in that team shouldn't be taking 60 points. There's something fundamentally wrong with Quins at the moment. But you can only beat what's in front of you, and our boys were outstanding.
They were indeed. They Quins kind of remind me of us in 2007 was it, where we had all these people, we were buying all these players, nothing was working, we had no ideas. Then we ended up getting relegated, and yeah, they've just literally got no structure, have they? Or they just seem lost. To be fair, there's some great little players on there, but yeah, to ship that many points.
Yeah, I don't think they're as bad as that when we were because. I think from the top that we were rudderless, weren't we? Paul Grayson was sort of trying his best, but Budge had left, and that we were probably a bit rudderless at the top in what we were trying to achieve, but we didn't really have the squad either. The squad had sort of was bit part. They put a lot into Carlos, and the rest of the squad probably wasn't up to standard. Whereas Quins, that team they've got some real talent.
Yeah.
But you just their defense has been shocking for ages. Their tight five don't fancy a fight. Don't.
Wasn't their defensive coach their now head coach?
Yeah, Jason Gilman. Yeah.
I'm no offence, I don't know the guy, but that to me, if your defence isn't doing very well, upgrading him to head coach, surely that doesn't seem like a good idea, personally.
I sort of think as well, Quins are one of the biggest, richest clubs in England. Financially one of the strongest. They should be shopping for a head coach at the top table. I know they had Wilson in, and then a week before the start of the season, he decided to take up a support role with Wales. But even Wilson for me isn't. That Quinn should be aiming high. When we decided to move Jim on after a decade of unbelievable service, then they decided it needed changing. We went to one of the most successful coaches in Super Rugby. We went top draw. They're maybe only one step from a proven international coach was Chris Boyd. That's where Quinn should be doing their shopping for head coaches, shouldn't they? Not people have proven successful. Someone like Ronan Agara or whoever should be attracted to the Quinn's job, not the way they've gone about things. But yeah, this isn't a podcast about Quins. This is
very good point.
Let's focus back on Saints. What do you think, Jess?
It was amazing. I mean, it still was amazing, but it was kind of a strange one of it didn't, and it's like you said, it goes back to you play what's in front of you, but I never really felt like we were ever in full first gear. And I think that's just because we didn't really need to be. That's not to say that some of the rugby we put on the pitch wasn't fantastic. It was. But I think you're right that, we're kind of playing against I was almost going to say defensive structure, but I don't even know I don't even know if they have one to even kind of describe it. Is that really? It's unfortunate because Quins are a long-standing club. They're a good club, but they haven't been turning up for a while. And I think their fans know that. The team knows that. Their coaches know that. And yeah, I think we did play really well. It's not to kind of negate that in any such way, but I still sometimes I'm sort of like, I don't know what it means for this weekend now, where we're actually going to be facing a team that's like proper top draw. So, but yeah, I mean, not to negate what we did, I thought like some of the plays were absolutely like outrageous, and we were given the space, ball, time, opportunity to do it, and we did it. And I can't help but feel that we got held up. If the defense was all right in some parts, we got held up 4 times over the line across the match. But you can't help but think that if they weren't held up in those situations and we've gotten the balls down, that scoreline could have been horrendous. So 66 points actually felt in a weird way like we could have done more. But at the end of the day, we've taken 5. We're still top. We didn't give Quins anything to take away from it. They didn't get any points. So yeah, but yeah, some of the plays were just. It really did look like they were in almost like a. And again, this is no disrespect to Quins, but it almost looked like they were on the training pitch running some of these plays that they do in training because they're really fun and it matches the type of rugby that we play. And yeah, the team we played gave us the opportunity to just run them with pretty much no interference, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was so slick, wasn't it? It was sort of some of the offloads and passes and stuff were like, you'd only expect to see that on a training ground when,
Yeah.
It's like, to put an analogy to this, right? So in darts, a 9-darter is a rarely televised thing, right? You rarely see it. But you hear that the professionals are actually scoring them all the time in practice. It's it's when you're behind closed doors on your own, your skills coming out, and it's 9-darters after 9-darters, happens all the time, and there's only been like 50 ever televised. It's sort of that vibe. It's like everything we were doing was a 9-darter. Like some of the tries were just so silky, so skillful, so technical. Like the Alex Cole's try. No, the Alex. I think it was the Alex Cole's try from the inside ball from Ram.
Yeah,
was just unbelievable. And then the Alex Mitchell try from the 2 front row forwards with the outside ball, the back of the arm flow onto Cole's storming on, offload into Mitchell's hands. I mean, those tries were just, it was like something on Rugby 08 or whatever. It was like just pressing a button and the ball was sticking. They were sensational, I thought.
That's what I was going to say about the props. The hands from the props were insane. And I can never say his name. Daniello, is it
Fischetti?
Fischetti.
Yeah, I have to be careful how you say that. He looked like he's absolutely joined the DNA of the Saints. He was offloading, spinning them out the back of the hand, and he got 2 tries himself. In front of his family as well, which he said. I read an article. So that was nice.
So impressed with him since he's joined the club. I think first few games, I thought, maybe Iogan's got a bit of a head ahead of him at scrum time. But I think he's obviously got on board the same with what we're doing here. And around the park, he's just excellent as well. Like we're so blessed with depth of talent that Lou said now. I think he has added so much coming in, and he's been big fan of his. I personally, Coles was out of this world, right? But I think Fischetti had a really good chance of being man of the match in that game. I thought he was exceptional.
I feel like
if Colesy hadn't got his hat trick, if he hadn't got his hat trick, I probably would have agreed with you. And he played the whole game, whereas Fischetti went off, didn't he?
Yeah, I think we've also I've become accustomed to Alex Coles being insanely good. Like he has to start for England, doesn't he? There isn't a lock in the country as good as him at the moment.
No. But did you two not like? I know we never really thought, because all our predictions thought we would struggle. But when they scored was it the first or second minute? He was like, "Oh God, is this like we're super playing like awesome rugby? They're playing really poor. Or is this going to come back and bite us on the bottom?"
Yeah,
just for like 5 seconds. Like their try was really good. It was a really well worked try.
Yeah, me and Jess ran into each other before the game, and we were having a chat, and we both said this could be a banana skin.
Yeah,
it just felt like a banana skin waiting, because what the performance we got from Quins was a performance we were expecting from Quins, but it's one of those ones where like Bath did against us when we sent a rotated side, they just didn't turn up. Like that was almost what you could almost see happening. It would be so obvious and so sort of cliche for us that go on this massive run, come up against possibly the weakest team in that run, and then just not deliver. But other than that initial try where they got a bit of a run, and there was a pull off the ball, which goes back to the Ivano penalty last week.
Let
how
it
can
go.
how can you get consistency when there was a pull off the ball that meant Todaro wasn't in position and set ready enough to make the tackle on the winger? But either way, right? Either way, there was a bit of a worry at that point, like you said. But
I know, yeah,
from that point on, it was dominance, wasn't it?
Yeah, to the people that sit next to me, I was just like, oh God, like I said, this could be a banana skin, and then they scored. I was like, oh, please no. But then, then the class just come out. They'd like you two were both saying about gears. I don't even think they got out of third gear. They didn't need to. There was just the hands are getting even better. I didn't think they could start calling Saints the Harlem Globetrotters, man. They're just insane. Honestly, it was some of that stuff was so, I don't even know the right word, just rude. It was just like, it was just mad. Like, and also JJ, the assist off the head.
But we no, I felt the same. I thought like, oh, they've made like a quick start, like they're obviously going to be up for it. And I go with my mum and we sit next to each other. But after we scored our second, I turned to her and I remember turning to her and I said, this is going to be a really bad afternoon for Quins. Like, for some reason, it was like, we only had 2 on the board at that point, right? So it's like 14-7. But I just remember thinking, like, the way that we just had clicked already by that point, I was like, this is going to be a really bad. Like, none of us went into the 60s, to be fair, with that score predictions. But, like, it just had the.
So I was very close.
I was very close. I actually didn't want us to score that last try because I think I would have been giving a bang on.
You were only 1 out with the margin.
Yeah. But yeah, it had the vibe really early on of like, oh, this is going to be, and I'm glad as well. Look, some people feel kind of ways. I absolutely love it when you totally barnstorm a team. Not always. Like, I remember like 90-0 in Gloucester, and that actually just kind of felt horrible the longer that went on because I was like, oh God, like, you just kind of feel, and they're still having problems, so it's kind of a sad situation around. But with this one, I didn't quite feel the same. But as we just kept going and going and going, and 5 tries. I think we literally scored the exact same points in both. So we had 33 at the end of the first half and 33 in the second. So we just had like 2 perfect halves as well, which is also not something that we necessarily see from Saints all the time. So that was obviously a positive. I mean, they're definitely going to have confidence, hopefully have confidence going into the weekend. But this is the proper test, really, isn't it? I know we said that about Bath, like that it would be a test. It turned out not to be. But yeah, this weekend is the proper test. But they've put themselves in the best position to be able to, and that we made loads of changes again, right? Still some of the same core personnel, but I think it was like 9 changes again from the week before. So we really are now looking at like a squad that's able to go and get these results, right? It's not just a particular 15 or a particular 23. Like, we're in this like insane position of you could bring sort of any one of like maybe 2 or 3 people in quite a lot of positions and they're still going to do a job for you, which is a good position, an excellent position to be in anyway. But obviously there were a few injury concerns that happened at the weekend, so that's definitely going to be necessary for this weekend. Like, there's not a chance in hell that Dingers is playing. Kemeny failed his HIA, so I don't think he'll be playing. So certain people become really important. I think it's why they brought Rory off, and they brought Rory off because he had a stinger to the ribs, because we're going to need him this weekend with no Dingers. So they had to go into protection mode a bit at the end, and so we went down to. So did Quins as well. To be fair, they had to go down to 14, but we went down to 14 as well. So there's a few question marks, I suppose, in certain positions, but I think everyone. He's going to have such a headache. He's going to have such a headache of who to pick because like there's so many people. You got to say there's probably almost like 30 plus players that have put their hands up and would be genuinely deserving of starting in the 15.
Yeah.
What's the protocol now with the HIA?
They've got 5 each level, haven't they? They've got
isn't it different if you're knocked out? Because Dingers was clearly knocked out.
I don't know. I just know you have what's called the return to play protocols. I'd be absolutely stunned if we see him in either of the European fixtures.
I was just saying, because he's got 7. He has got 7 days, hasn't he? If it was a 7-day period, like Kemeny could do, because it's Saturday to Sunday.
Yeah, Kemeny possibly could. He's more likely, I suppose, out of the 2 of them. That knock was. I know they said he was up and around afterwards, and like Dingers, I think he posted like about 15 minutes before I came on for this meeting on Instagram to say he was all right. But I don't see how he makes it through the protocols in time, because it was bad. But Kemeny might potentially maybe because like you said, they do have the 7 days. But bearing in mind they've got to make a decision 2 days before that and they've got to fly a day before that, so they're going to have to make their choices before, aren't they? So they're really working, I suppose, on a more of a
They can
5-day turnaround, I suppose. So you can take him.
They'll
Did you
take
see?
him, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Did you see
imagine
how
that
it
most.
happened?
I'm
Did you
assuming
see how
most
it
of them.
happened?
Which one?
They dingers. Did you actually
Mhm.
see what happened? Yeah,
Mm.
Don Brandt, and then he actually got hit by Tommy.
It was
Tommy's
Tommy,
knee,
yeah.
wasn't it?
It was
Yeah,
Tommy.
unfortunate.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm assuming that. Well, to be honest, I'm assuming most of the team is going to go and watch it, even if they're not playing anyway, because you would, wouldn't you? I mean, it's going to be a hell of a fixture, but yeah, you should imagine that Kemeny at least goes as maybe a travelling reserve, or someone else goes as a reserve in case he doesn't make it. But yeah, I can't see Dingers making it. That was I mean, that game that was off for. It was probably a good 10 minutes that took to stabilise him and get him off. So
Yeah, no, that's the thing. You just put things into perspective. You know, you've got to. That was a serious knock. You've got to look after him and make sure he's okay. And that sort of his safety and his priority at that point, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, it's sort of worrying when someone's down that long, but you just have to trust them and trust the doctors and all that sort of stuff.
He was moving his legs and his feet, and then he did put the thumbs up twice.
He did, yeah.
Off.
Yeah.
I mean, it does put us in a bit of a sticky spot though with the centres, because, like you say, Hutch has got that bang to the rib that they took him off as a precautionary sort of thing. He had it from the week before. They actually played a bit of time with Finn at 12. Bellew went in at 10. Because with Litchfield injured as well, it's sort of, we haven't seen Tame for a couple of weeks. It's sort of, if Hutch isn't really firing or ready, it does. I think that's probably why they put Finn in there, just to see how that works, give him some time in that position, because they are. We're creaking a little bit at centre. It's not fully, sprung, or whatever, but there's a little bit of a leakage there, and I think we've got to be, because it's such an important part as well. Hutchinson's fundamental to our attack in a lot of ways. Dingwall's fundamental to a lot of what we do as well. Not having one of them in the centres, it sort of makes it very hard to sort of get that attack running. Especially when against Quins, they'd refound that form. That link in the midfield, getting that space to Finn so that he can get the ball outside and we can move the ball into the wider channels and into space to give the likes of Hendy opportunities to attack, was really back. And that's why, we had 2-on-2s and we were beating men on the outside. We're just faster, stronger, more powerful than them. And, I mean, Hendy's ability to square up a man and then run sideways, right? It's the oddest thing in the world, because he's sort of square on, but he's moving lateral. And so he squares up the defender, then runs around them, and then he creates a 2-on-1 from a pretty easy 2-on-2, because he squares him up and then he's gone. He's like a bishop in chess. He runs diagonally, but he looks like he's going forward. It's just really unique, but it creates so much space, and he had so much power and pace to that movement as well, that he destroyed. He just, ball in hand going forward, he's exceptional.
You want to you're talking of ribs. You want to check that Finn's okay. I reckon he's got like a Don Brandt shaped body in him. He absolutely hammered him every time he could hammer him. And they were all after him, weren't they? Cunningham himself was after him. That was clearly their remit, was go and hit Finn Smith, because the poor lad got absolutely battered.
I think it's like a 50-50 thing though. I think it's part that, as a 10, he's going to get targeted anyway. But I also genuinely would describe him as one of the bravest players on the pitch, who delays that pass as long as he can to create space, knowing what's coming, because he knows what's coming. And like you said, 4, 5, 6 times he got absolutely clattered into the ground. And yet he puts his body on the line. He will just, and even when he's not ready to pass, he will just barrel himself into people. I'm like, what is he doing? Please stop. But he throws himself into tackles as well. He throws himself into everything. Yeah, I think he's such a brave player, and he's been phenomenal the past few weeks. So I'm really hoping that he's got himself back on England's radar for the Six Nations. Obviously, the European fixtures will definitely tell, because at least Bordeaux is supposed to be a lot harder. Obviously, I would still say theoretically, but I'd say actually it's going to be harder. So, that will kind of be where it tells, I think, because yeah, he's been so good, and it's almost like the flip of Marcus Smith in a way, who I'd say was still trying. I think him and Don Brandt and Cunningham South were probably the three players that tried the hardest to spark stuff, not to no real avail.
I, I just challenge one of those calls because
Penning
I think
himself.
no, I think Callum himself was actually their best player. I thought he was the only one actually sticking it about, putting some shots in, carrying hard, actually hitting the line with aggression. I think Marcus created a bit of space for everyone around him.
Yeah.
There just wasn't any energy or enthusiasm to carry from the rest of the team. There was a few times when he almost created a 2-on-1 and it sort of died because the person carrying the ball was sort of walking it in.
Yeah.
But so I agree with those two. Don Brandt I disagree with because our wingers carried with more aggression and more energy than he did. And he's their big, strong number 8. And he was walking it into contact at times. Like he did, other than the 2 tries. I mean, celebrating that first try like it was Ronaldo or something. I'm like looking at it and going, that's embarrassing. Because the way you're performing, you get that one pick around the corner and you sort of half-heartedly said, right, either build the energy and go for it or just get back to the line and go again. But I thought he was, yes, he scored his 2 tries, but I thought he was really off colour, really the player he was.
I agree with Jess. I thought he was their best player. Honestly, he got around everywhere. He absolutely hammered every tackle. He hit Finn Smith about 6 times. But no, and you know my feeling on Marcus Smith, most overhyped player in England. So, and it literally showed like Finn Smith totally. If he gets picked ahead of him in the Six Nations, you know Borthwick's been drinking too much because on that show alone. Seriously, that's another level. I know he's in a poor side.
That's the thing. That's the difficulty he has, right?
He's in a poor side, but then you should be showing his class. He should be bringing them up.
But I think that's why Charles was right, though. It's like you can only do so much when, I mean, at one point, the whole team, probably except for like those 3 I mentioned, looked disinterested. Like there's literally only so much you can do. And I would sort of think, like, why should he bother trying to put loads of effort in if no one else is? Like, because, you know, and I still think he actually did for most of the match, to be fair. Like, you know, he was probably the most high energy out of them. And like, we've seen what he can do with that Quinn side when they're, you know, on the up and they're on top. But no, I still agree that you kind of have to base it off of form. And even if it's not necessarily his fault because the whole team is struggling form wise, he's not the inform out of the 2 of the Smiths. Sure. I'm still going to go out on a limb and assume that he's going to continue on with this forward trajectory, but yeah, hopefully Finn, we have to say Finn Smith now because there's 2 of them. Hopefully Finn, you know, gets his call back up. He's been just absolutely crucial to kind of like the way we've played, and it really told against like Quins in particular. But yeah, I mean, he must have been limping about 5 different times, and I was like, please run it off. And then obviously they were stuck in a situation of, because they wanted to protect Rory, which is understandable considering what happened, Finn had to stay on, and then Bello went off obviously with blood, and so Finn became even more important to that as well. So in a realistic world, they probably would have wanted to bring him off with 15 minutes to go, 20 minutes to go, but they didn't really have the ability to do so.
Yeah, I mean, as a 10, you are really, you know, your job is to run the play, put others in space, dictate where you play on the pitch, right? If no one else does anything, well, you're literally hamstrung. And good players look good in good teams. Good players don't look good in bad teams, right? Because it is ultimately a team game. And you see that by England selections are generally from teams that are performing well at the top end of the league. You very rarely do get really good players being picked from the smaller, weaker, they're not even smaller, but the teams that are performing worse in the league. And you know, if it's irrelevant, no one knows what's happening, blah, blah, blah. But if you think of someone like George Furbank, if he goes to Quins and they perform the way they are, well, he won't. It's probably kissing his England career goodbye because he's not going to be able to perform well in a team that plays that badly. You know, that you look at their side, Marcus Smith. He's won games for Quins. He's won leagues for Quins. He's won games for England, etc. He is a good player. Doesn't look at his best in that side. You know, Joe Launchbury isn't in quality and did nothing when he came on.
He's a bit old. I'm not judging the man. The man's been around forever. He's a legend, but he's getting on a bit now, isn't he?
Yeah, but Northmore's a good player. You know, they've got some good players. Yeah. Murley's a good player. Beard's a good player. They've got, you know, Kenningham's a class player.
Have they still got Green?
He's injured, I think.
Yeah, because
But
he's a great player, that boy.
they've got quality, but they look poor because they're performing poorly as a side, And it goes the other way because you look at teams that have been dominant in the Premiership, like Saracens, for example. Players who potentially aren't as talented as others in the league get selected for England because they perform well in a winning side. And so being in a winning side is fundamental, and that's why Finn is light years ahead of Marcus, I think, at the moment in terms of selection, because Saints top of the world at the moment. We're outstanding at the moment, and therefore you can attribute that to the players.
The thing that made me sort of rub it in even more. The fact was, I think it was Tony Bellew when he went off. They just didn't bother bringing anybody on. So it's like, we'll play 14 now, and we'll still score a try against you.
We could have done was chuck Mitchell back on for blood injury replacement.
Yeah, we didn't have a choice. So it was like we'd used all of our subs, and I think they just thought, like, why bother?
Can you not for blood though? I thought you can for blood.
No, you can.
But we'd have only had Mitchell.
We'd have had one person, and Mitchell does definitely need to be protected at all costs. You chuck Mitchell on for 15 minutes and he gets really badly injured. It was the worst decision you could ever make. And Quins had gone down to 14 before us, so at that point it's 14 on 14. So I
didn't even notice that.
They had used all their subs and they couldn't have someone come back on.
Okay.
They weren't allowed.
To be fair, we didn't have to put back on. We could have put JJ on the wing for 10 minutes.
Yeah, you could have done anything with, but it probably wasn't worth it in that moment, was it really, considering. So they just left it, and it's still, like I said, they'd lost a player just before us, so it was 14 on 14. So it was back to
I didn't even notice that. My bad.
It was equal. It was equal.
Right.
So in that case, it's like. And to be honest, even if they were at 15 and we were at 14, I've still done the same thing, considering there wasn't long left in the game.
The ultimate, rubbing it in, we've already absolutely battered you. Now we'll go down a player, but I didn't realise they'd lost one as well.
It's also a case
of
went
down to 14 first.
Putting the team in that stress scenario of being a player down, so they're more used to it when it happens in the future. Yeah. You go, we're down to 14, so we've got our scrum or our line-out decisions have got affected by it. So rehearsing that sort of thing is a good thing to have. The other, talking about a forward potential on the wing or whatever, a forward out of position, and Finn Smith as well. Probably my highlight of the match was Cleopas Kundiano on about 30 metres inside the pitch, calling for the quick pass at the back.
Yeah, and
Finn giving it to him.
So funny.
That was my highlight of the game. I couldn't believe. I saw Cleopas put his hand up, and I thought, "Oh, he's having a laugh thinking that." And then Finn gave him the ball. That was outstanding.
Oh yeah, it really is a case of like not that we ever would anyway, but I honestly would say that I can't pick anybody that I felt like didn't massively contribute to that in some way. It was just unreal. I don't even know how to really describe the past couple of weeks, because it's just been like a fever dream. In particular, the Bath game was just like a fever dream. You just wouldn't be surprised if I woke up the next day and I'd imagined it. But yeah, it's just been going, so well, and God, we've got so much talent.
Yeah, I think there is a defining difference, and why we're making poor teams look poor, which is where we've improved massively in the last couple of years, is our attacking rucks, and also defensively at rucks as well. I think we now are so aggressive and so good on our support in giving clean, quick ball to Mitchell that we play at such a pace now. I think a few years ago we were always susceptible to being turned over by a jackler. If we came up against a Tommy Raphael or a Will Evans or someone who was notoriously good at getting over the ball and slowing us down, Tom Curry, etc., we seem to be susceptible to that. But now our attacking rocking is so different. It's so aggressive. It's a lot more borderline in terms of legality. There is definitely an element of us off our feet, and we're not the only ones that do that. Lots of teams playing blue in Ireland, for example, have done that for years and got away with it, etc. Exeter probably had a whole dynasty built around doing it, etc. So like
Mm.
we're not like it's not like we're the only team to ever do it, but we are definitely now in much more the grey area, much more on the verge of legality, pushing the boundaries there. But what it's given us is extremely good platform for our backs and our play, our attacking play, and that's why we're destroying teams, because we've got such talented players that if we get quick ball, we can tear teams apart. And vice versa, defensively, the Radford effect, we are so much better at grappling to slow down opposition ruck speed. So a lot of our tackles are and I think this has always been the case, but we're becoming really, really effective at it, are that sort of grapple tackle where you sort of catch them and you try and hold them up for as long as possible. And you might concede an extra couple of foot maybe, but in the meantime you've set your line and you've slowed them down, and you know, so it's our increased speed of our attack and our decrease in their speed in their attack with our defense is the big difference over the last few weeks, is why we're destroying these teams, because we're winning both sides of the ruck, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I've been going. That's gonna make me sound old now. I was 4. I've been going nearly 40 years, and Saints have always been Saints. They've always played to the rules. They've always been. They never do anything bad. They'd always do it to the T. Now that, like you just said, they're trying. They're playing the ref, which is not a bad thing. If your ref doesn't ref it, do it. And like you said, you play on them on those limits, and it wins you stuff, and you can see the difference. Because I remember, even was it last year when we were doing the pod, all you kept saying is, "We don't compete in the ruck," and that's all you ever used to say. But they've obviously listened, because they're doing it now, aren't they? And it's insane. It probably helps with the players we've signed as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because like Kemeny good at it, Chick's obviously great at it. So it does change, but it's the mentality, it's your mind, isn't it? Like you say, just play to the ref. And we will mention ref quickly. I thought again, I don't know whether you two think, but I thought she was great. I like Sarah Cox. Quality ref. Up there in the top 3, I reckon, easily. Doesn't take any, and she makes her own decisions as well. She didn't use the TMO hardly at all.
Yeah, I fully agree. I thought she was excellent. I think so interpretation is always going to be a thing, but I think she's clear and concise. She talks to the players well. She's most of the time making right decisions. Yeah, I think she's excellent. I don't think you can fault her.
Nope.
No, I thought she was really, really good.
Positivity for a referee. Don't hear that on here very often.
Compared to I can't think of the ref's name who ref the Friday night game. Oh my God, he lost control, and you know, he was the TMO was coming in at random times, missing one of the worst tackles I think I've ever seen. Like Dylan Hartley would have got a 7-week ban, like, for less, and yet it was, you know, it's a penalty on field. The TMO saw the video like 10 times and go, maybe review this one, which they often do.
What was your two's view on the head-on-head? Because I didn't even think it was a penalty, but like I shouldn't have gone on there, but I was reading the Quint. They were like, "That was a red card." It was never a red card. I didn't even think it was. From the looks where I looked, it looked like his shoulder hit his shoulder and whipped his head back. I didn't think there was any head contact at all. But fair play to her, she just went penalty, didn't she?
I remember thinking at the game, from like what I can see of the thing, thinking that like penalty was fair. But I have to be honest, when I watched it back at home, and you got like obviously the benefit of like all the TV angles, I think he's lucky that he didn't get a yellow, because I think there's one particular angle where he very clearly, the sort of top of his head smashes right into the side of his chin.
Oh, fair enough.
And so I think he got quite lucky. But then again, for me, it's not even necessarily like if it's the right call or not. Like, she really clearly went through her protocols, answered her questions. Like, yeah, you could maybe say like, you don't agree with the particular answer that she came up with, but sometimes it's enough just to be like, unless it's really egregious, like if it should have been a permanent red and it was a penalty, then maybe the discussion would be different. But I think, there's probably a good argument for both, and as long as you're kind of like clear, concise, why you've made that decision. I think that's the main thing that's really impressive about her, to be honest, is like, she's also really, I don't really know that the right word for it, but like, she'll talk to players, she'll engage with players, she'll have a laugh with them, but then there's also that clear boundary. So like at one point, one of the Quins players was walking up to him, was obviously shouting, and she just pointed at him, and she said, "No, walk back to your line." And he did go back, but you know, she has this clear kind of relationship with like, I'll happily chat to you. And she chatted to different people, you know, she wasn't one of those that's like, I'll only talk to the captain. Like if someone from the scrum wanted to ask a question about the scrum, she would let them ask. If someone wanted to ask about the breakdown, she'd let them ask. And, you know, she had different discussions. She had a really funny conversation with, it was when Dingers was down, but on the ref match, she had a really funny discussion with Callum Chick. And at one point they were just talking about like their Christmases. So like, you know, she's happy to have, yeah, she's, I think it started off, she was like, are you the captain now? And he goes, yeah, I don't know why they've picked me. So she laughed at that. And then, yeah, they moved on. But like, she'll have that kind of conversation with you. But like, you cross a boundary, you know, you do something that you're not supposed to. Exactly, 100%. And that's kind of what it is, right? Like, and that, I think that's what allows her to have kind of the respectful conversations with them that, you know, there's a clear, I'm nice up to a point, which is, I think, what refs are supposed to do. Whereas sometimes you do see refs where they just kind of let people walk all over them a little bit or dictate things a little bit too much, whereas you don't really get that vibe with her. It's a case of, I'll listen to you, but I don't have to agree with you. Like later on in the match, Chick said something to her and she went, I don't know what you're talking about, and just like laughed at him. So like, you know, I think she just has a really good relationship with players, and that's always a really important thing in terms of communication and how those decisions are respected. But yeah, no, she was a really good ref, and I think things probably got, I don't know if missed is the right word. I think a lot went on at the breakdown from both sides that she kind of missed, because unless it's something that's really egregiously a penalty offence, I think she was one of those people that wanted the game to run, which suits us perfectly. So it really worked out well for us from that perspective, because like the pace that the team were playing at some point was ridiculous, like insane. Like, you know, I think there's only like a handful of other probably teams in the world that can deal with that pace for 80 minutes. Like, you know, and so we were able to play the way that we wanted to as well. And look, sometimes you're going to get a ref that doesn't work that way. You know, we got lucky this weekend. But yeah, I thought it was a really good performance. But yeah, no, I certainly don't. I don't think a red card was ever in the discussion for that.
It was just because they lost, probably.
I agree.
But all you really want is you just want a ref that can ref. I'm not taking anything away from her. She's amazing, but she just does what she's meant to do. All those those guys are just bloody useless.
I agree. I don't think it was anywhere near a red and could have potentially bordered into yellow, but I think the initial contact was shoulder on shoulder, and then he's bumped through the shoulder, and then there's probably a sort of top of his head hit Dombrandt's chin. There's enough motion and sort of movement in the tackle to mitigate it to penalty, I think. And I personally think I'd rather more refs take that approach, because if someone's technique is abysmal, it's dangerous, it's reckless, that's what we want out of the game.
Yep.
Dynamic tackles that end up with accidental head-on-head is going to happen, and all you're doing is asking for inconsistency if you hit some and not the others. You know, if what you don't want is that instant to be a penalty in that night, and then 3 weeks later it's the same thing, a red card.
Yeah,
exactly that. And that's exactly. I've always said that, because it's always it. I know we're trying to stop head injuries and stuff, but it's a contact sport. These guys are running into each other at top speed. You're going to get the odd little bang of the head, and sometimes referees are straight out with a red card, and you're like, that is never a red card, just because it's the protocols. But
that's when you've got to look at it and go, right, are they bolt upright? Have they come in at excessive pace and recklessly? And they're your reds. Like, but if it wasn't actually that big a shot from Ram. He sort of very last minute got in a half decent tackle position and banged into him. Dombrandt barely felt it. I mean, he did drop the ball randomly immediately afterwards, but he was just sort of stood there. It barely touched him. So
the funny thing really was Ram would have to blame Hendy, because it was a god awful tackle attempt from Hendy, who, to be fair, laughed about it afterwards. That meant that Ram had to come in.
Was that the one where he bounced off him?
Dombrandt's sat him right down. And to be fair, he was chuckling away, but I was like, if Ram gets a yellow, it's your fault, mate. Because you didn't stop him. But yeah, I mean, it was it was good defensively. I mean, attack wise, Eduardo Todaro, I mean, what the hell?
That carry where men were just like falling off him.
What the hell?
The desire he has got to just carry.
Do you know what the last bit for me as well was the the cherry on the cake, because I'm not a massive fan. He absolutely just knocked. Marcus Smith was the last defender, and he just went straight through him.
Well, I mean, the one thing I've
Love
also, that, to be fair, is quite a consistent sort of conversation around Marcus, is it, and why I'm always worried when they have him at 15 is defensively he's always been weak. So that didn't really surprise me. But I mean, the first guy kind of could only just about grab his shirt, and it just wasn't enough. But I mean, Nick David, don't go in trying to tackle someone round the chest area. It's just not going to work. I mean, he just shoved him off him and sat him right down. And
that's the thing that you would expect if you're Nick David to be able to absolutely flatten Edo, right? He's a tiny little thing. Nick David's not massive, but you'd back him to win in a generally sort of chest on chest high tackle with a bit of momentum behind him. But Edo just mentally, he was going to the line, wasn't he?
Oh yeah,
his desire to hit that line is. I mean, he's got the magic footwork, but his mental ability just to boom, I'm going there.
You know, it reminded me.
It's just
exceptional. You know, it reminded me of, because he's sort of like Italian, so I'm going to go down gaming. Super Mario. He had one of those stars, and he went super quick. He was just for everybody. He just literally. It was amazing to see.
I was going to say someone a bit closer to home. I was going to say it's like a little Paul Diggin, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
It's just all heart and desire to get to the line.
I think because obviously we scored 10, but I think the ones that stood out were definitely that one from Tazaro. Although both of his tries were exceptional, but that one was insane. And then the Colsey one with, I mean, that pass from Mills to Fischetti was disgusting. Yeah. And then and then Alex, you can see in the slow-mo, Alex obviously shouts something to Danilo, so he knows that Alex is behind him, so he passes it. It was just, and then just the easiest pop into Mitchell. It was crazy. And then they were just, I don't know, we were just, and really the one for me as well was that Mitchell. So the Mitchell one to set up Coles, the reason he has to do that stupid run around is because he actually wants to go one way and the ref is in the way. So then he goes, I don't know where to go. What do I do? And just runs in this weird circle, and then all of a sudden a gap just appears. He's like, all right, boom, and it also feels like it did kind of really summarize Quins' bad game, because Alex was running around in that circle for quite a while. You should have been able to close the gaps. It took him a minute to find it.
But once there's no energy to get connected from Quins. There's no energy to join the line up, get connected, put some pressure on Mitchell. It was all sort of just lumbering around, and he just ran until he found a gap.
Mitchell loves to snipe and he'll find a gap, but he had about 5 seconds to find that gap, and they didn't close it. In fact, I'm pretty sure it didn't exist until the last bit when it just opened up for him. But I mean, he just has one of the best abilities to spot the space like that in an instant when it appears. And and he goes, and then literally all Tommy had to do was follow him. The easiest thing he'll ever do. You just had to stay in touch with him.
They've all said it, Danielio said it on the radio afterwards. Alex Cole says it all the time. What you do on a rugby field is you follow Alex Mitchell.
Yeah.
And you will score tries. That's the game plan.
It's what makes it's what is making Colsey really prolific at the moment. Mitchell just goes, he just follows him, bish bash bosh. They're in. So it's crazy work at the moment.
I've said it before, there isn't an athlete on the planet like Alex Cole. There isn't. There are second rows don't follow scrum halves for tries. That's not a thing. That doesn't happen. But with our side, Mitchell is just such a live wire, and they all know how to do it. They all just follow him. On the radio afterwards, it was a funny conversation between Lenny Newman and Daniele Fischetti, and they were we worried Lenny was going to come out with a bit of Italian at one point, but all Daniele said was, Mitchell, dummy, try. Dummy, give me the ball, try. You just watch him. He goes, dummy, gap, try.
So I watched it back on Sunday morning. The amount of times that Mitch just he must have done it about 10 times, and every time one of the players fell for it, and I was like, and every time it kept happening, I was like, why aren't you learning? He keeps doing this. Why won't you learn? And it was just. He's so good at the moment, Mitch. They were talking, obviously, listening to the commentary, which I obviously didn't listen to when I was at the game because I have the ref, but the commentary, and they were talking about, he's easily the best 9 in the country. I was like, it goes further than that in my mind. Like
He's the best.
the
He's the best around, I'd say.
the way he's
Because
playing.
been injured. He's the best around.
Yeah, the way he's playing at the moment is just ridiculous. So yeah, it's going to be so important this weekend.
We're talking about all the players we've re-signed and who we're not re-signing. I'm so glad we've re-signed Douse. Because I don't know if you heard his interview. He was like, "Oh yeah, we've just beaten the teams by like 66 points." He's like, "Yeah, the first half was a bit disappointing. We need with some stuff to work on." It's like he's straight on. Like he went not going for the negatives, but that's what you want because that just means they're going to get more and more and more, and just drill him into winning stuff.
It feels almost like
brilliant.
Yeah, it feels a bit like Demetrio Post. Like I think they were interviewing Nick Evans. I think he said, "Oh yeah, we're impressed with some stuff." I was like, "What?" But in the nice, I mean it in the nicest way I can mean it. But I was like, by what exactly? I was like, I kind of agree. You kind of help. I think who is that helping? Like with the best will in the world, who is that helping? There was times when like England had played really bad, and you'd have coaches go, "Well, we can look at the positives." I was like, there wasn't one.
No,
you can't manufacture them. Like,
yeah, at a certain point, you need to just put accountability back on those players because if you were a travelling fan and you saw that, I mean, you said after that we scored the second try, you thought, "Oh, it's going to be big, right?" You could tell that because of the body, the body language of Quins was already
100%.
Heads down, slowly walking back to the halfway line. There was no right, come on, let's we're still in this game, let's turn it a contest. They were beat already, and if you're a travelling fan watching that. That's the worst thing you could possibly see. Like if you get beat, like we've all watched teams when we've not been the best, and you still support your team, etc. And all you want to see is them giving it what they can giving everything, and that's all you can ask. But like they didn't give that. So if you're Nick Evans and he's a Quins legend, and I know he's got to probably be careful with what he says, and he's probably thinking about what he says, but you have to push accountability back on the players. They were the ones who didn't deliver.
Because at this point, ironically, like having listened to, I think it was this weekend, I think it was last weekend, after whoever they played then, like Danny Kerr was like, the players need to look at themselves. They need to take responsibility. I was like, if you've got an ex-player, an absolute legend of the club, who's basically being upfront, like the players are such a big part of the problem. I was like, your coach should be able to say that. Like, and I heard the same thing. Phil, he said, yeah, the first 10-20 minutes were really disappointing. I was like, that's what you need. Because he knows next weekend that anything less than an 80-minute performance, you're not beating Bordeaux in Bordeaux, right? So, he knows that they've got to go and they've got to do 80 minutes. So he's thinking, what is it in that first sort of 10, 15, 20 minutes that we can improve on for next week, right? Because no matter how well we've been playing, there are definitely room for improvement, right? Like, we've talked about Hendy before. I still thought he was like absolutely outstanding, but there are still one or two mistakes that he's making that against teams that are performing better than a team like Quins are going to get punished. So that there is room, and I'm not saying that like just to single him out. I still think like there's people like JJ, for example, who makes insane meters but still has issues with the ball. He can make up for it because ironically I think his header of the ball actually set up the try perfectly for Finn. Without it, I don't know if that gets scored like that in that moment. It's so funny.
The only thing on that point, just to cover up that, is the reason why he ends up heading it forwards and is because the opposition defender is so scared of tackling him. He hits him about 4 seconds before he's got the ball. So JJ's arms are actually wrapped up, and he can't do anything but head of the ball.
Exactly.
So that one did him off, but there were other moments where he dropped the ball, and we know how high he can get. Yeah. So that's why we're judging him at that high level.
The scrum was a bit more 50-50. Like they got, Quins got a few penalties off us a couple of times. So that's what you want from someone like Douse, like to just be up front and be like, yeah, we weren't that great for the first 10-15 minutes, and that becomes part of their Monday morning review, right? Like I know they did say, I listened to the commentary again, they said that they replayed that chick tackle on Arundel like multiple times in the Monday review, so like they definitely pull out like the positives that they do, don't get me wrong, but like at the end of the day he's thinking ahead, and he's thinking like, we've got one of the toughest, probably the toughest sort of like European team coming up, and we need to be ready for that. And so it's just really refreshing because we haven't, it's not always been that with like coaches for Saints. Like that time when, and again, Malander is like a legend of like the club and will always be that, but there were sometimes we were doing really bad in 2016, 2017 when I just wanted to bang my head against a wall every time I was listening to him in interviews, like, well, these are the positives, this is what we could take away from it. I was like, we lost by XYZ amount of points. Like, where's the, like Quins, they got 3 tries, but they got no points out of it. Like, where are the positives that you're apparently seeing? Because I'm not seeing them. I don't think your fans are seeing them. So
No, I don't think anything played well for them. I mean,
No.
Interesting those comments. Listening, to Dowson and Vesti after the game, etc. There's a few interesting points around. They were the criticisms they have are around the defensive actions of Saints. And there's a few errors in terms of defensively, from what they were seeing. And apparently Radford was actually quite irate because he was getting quite angry about it, bits and pieces, because they weren't delivering. And maybe that's because they'd already thought, oh, we're on top of it, and they went out of their systems. They forced things because they thought, oh, we're on top, and got out of control a bit. But interestingly as well, though, Vesti said in the interview after the game that Quins have a very similar approach to the game that Bordeaux have in terms of the way they go about doing things. Especially with that physicality up the guts before bringing in the likes of Perlo and Biri, etc. And so, what Quins bought, even though not very well, is a good thing. Was a good run out. It's almost, I bet they'd wish Quins came better to prepare them for the game on Sunday, because we've had 5 games in a row where we've been excellent against teams that haven't turned up. I'm guaranteeing on Sunday Bordeaux are turning up.
Yeah.
Right. And so
100%. 100%.
That's going to be the tester, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that like if we lose that game it's some kind of indication of anything, because it probably isn't, because like I said, they're a really, really good side. But yeah, it's definitely the biggest test that we have this season. But it's definitely something that we know about this club, right? We think about Bath literally just a couple of weeks ago. We think about Leinster last season. Like, the team knows how to get themselves up for like the biggest fixtures. And yeah, it really does just depend on kind of like what type of Bordeaux turn up, what the kind of atmosphere is between the two clubs, because obviously there was I don't want to say controversy, because I don't know if that was the right word. I would really just describe Bordeaux's responses as kind of pathetic in like the days after their win, but like there's history there. So that always that plays a part.
Pollock's fault.
Yeah. Who has definitely been rested to get himself up for that 100%. So, that's going to definitely be interesting. So, there's a lot riding on it, and sometimes the more emotional the fixtures, the better for us, and the worse for sometimes the teams we play. So it's going to be a really interesting, genuinely really interesting match. I mean, don't get me wrong, losing to them doesn't end the European season, right? We can still finish second in the table. We can still do really good things after that, but it's definitely a tester of how Europe might go this year, because like obviously flip side to last year, our Prem form is going really, really well, and that's a really big positive. But yeah, it's a really good indication of where we kind of are going to be sitting on kind of like a European stage, because there are some, Bordeaux are not the only strong club going at the moment. There's a few others that are putting in some, like I said, like Dupont came back for Toulouse and they were ridiculous. So yeah, that'll be interesting. All I know is I saw the result of, you definitely can't turn off against them. I think they played Racing this weekend.
Yeah.
They were losing. They were losing with 55 minutes to go. It was 15-20, and all of a sudden it's 60-20. So you cannot have. I think that's probably where Dowse's comments come in about like the 10-20 minutes that were a little bit disappointing. Like you literally cannot have them, because they will just turn the screw. Like, and we know that with the players that we've got available. The good thing, I suppose, is that we also have that availability if they aren't quite 100%. So yeah, it's definitely shaping up to be an interesting match.
It's 2 teams with blockbuster form. It should be a highlight of the competition. It should be amazing.
Yep.
What I'd say with Pollock though, what we should do is just stick him on one wing, right, and then all their attention will be on him, and we'll just have space elsewhere, because they're just obsessed with him. So we should just see non-stop dummy runs, Pollock, constantly dummy runs.
It's the importance of, and I go back to the game against Cast last season, where it's like they were so focused on going after him that we kind of beat them quite easily, because their focus just seemed to be on him all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Bordeaux are necessarily going to intentionally make the same mistake or decision, but you can't help but feel there's no way that it won't cause some kind of tension somewhere. And all of a sudden we use that. It's like Henry, you go and create some tension over there. We're just going to pop over here and and score or whatever, So it's like he's kind of the perfect person to have in that situation. And he'd played a lot of rugby, hasn't he, since he came back after the Lions. So the rest makes perfect sense.
He's played a lot of games off the bench though, hasn't he? So I imagine he's sort of pretty fresh. He obviously played a lot of rugby for England as well, more than he had, but I think they probably managed him really well.
Yeah,
I think so.
He's in the French's heads, isn't he was getting booed at post, for Christ's sake. So you imagine he's going to be like, see, you have to play him Saturday just because he could be the key to, because the lads he was arguing with, I can't remember who it was Perno on it, and
it was Jalabert mainly. Jalabert was the one that was going off on him the most, yeah.
And
they
were
then
literally,
you said Poirot, didn't they? Poirot got involved.
So they're going to be like on him, and he will just run round him. It's going to be hilarious. I can't wait.
I think he kind of wants it sometimes. I really do think that he.
Oh, of course he does.
I also think he doesn't mind being the distraction, because if he's a distraction and everyone's focused on him and we can go off on the other side of the pitch and do what we want to do, like it works out perfectly. And I mean, look, I know everyone has this discussion of does he start, does he come off the bench, impact, yada yada. But I mean, assuming that Kemeny is, let's go off the assumption that he's probably not going to be ready to start. Like you're probably in a situation where Pollock does have to start. And so, hopefully he makes an impact straight away and off we go. But yeah.
Yeah, I think if Kemeny isn't fit, it's an interesting one, because I think I would then be tempted to bring Coles into 6 and beef up the second row with Pollock and Pearson in the back row with him. I think you got one of the best back rows around if you do that.
You could, but we have also seen. We have seen Chick, Pearson, and Pollock play together as well, and they've been exceptional together. So they've actually got some good choices that they can make there. Because Chick, over the past 2 weeks, like the way he's been playing, like I feel like he absolutely deserves a spot. And like Pearson was just an absolute menace over the weekend. So
Pearson plays.
Don't forget Graham. Sam Graham came on.
Graham was
every single person. He was an animal. He was sort of like looking, going, "Don't forget me, guys."
The commentators at the game were having an absolute loving fest for him. They were mainly because obviously the injury, that injury, 10, 15 years ago was like a career ender. Like for him to come back from that and to be playing at the level and the ability that he is right now, he definitely also has, part to play. 100%.
Exactly, 10, 15 years ago, that's the injury that finished my playing. But yeah,
exactly.
There's so much talent, and that's why it's really interesting options. Because I think if Kemeny's fit, he deserves to start. Purely because of what he brings to the line out. Or, he brings everything else, but that alone gets him playing. But that's why I would just be potential, if he's not there, I would be tempted to bring Coles in at 6 and beef up that second row to go physical. And, physical with the French. Just talking about locks as well, we should note quickly,
just about to
Tommy Lockett signed a new contract. I thought it was quite an interesting quote from Dowson in terms of what he said. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, and it's a conspiracy theory, whatever. But he used the phrase "over the moon." Is that a little sort of? Have we finally over the loss of Alex Moon? Are we?
I think
you're not.
He's probably just happy.
No. To be honest with you, I think Lockett stepped up massively into the void that Mooney left by being so physical, and his form at the beginning of the season was so good that he was deserving to start. And it was like, how can we get 3 locks in the team? But and I think if you picked based on everyone being fit and at their best, I think he does start for us. I think he's phenomenal in what he brings. But great to see him signing on.
Yeah.
And
I think there's big things ahead of him for him as well.
I mean, that's the interesting thing about the team, though, for this weekend is there's probably only more so in the backs, I guess, in the forwards, but there's only a few positions where you feel like there's certain people that they have to start. That's how talented the squad is. You've got so much choice in 1, 2, 3. Because honestly, who do you pick? Manny's been really good. Fischetti's been really good. Big Trev on one side, Cleopas has been really good. All of a sudden, Robbie versus Wright becomes a huge thing, and when Langdon comes back in, it's the 3 of them. Like you said, the back row. you could pick any. I feel like you could put together any three, and they're going to be really competitive. So like, there's lots of questions there. Whereas like your 9 and 10 is fixed, your 12 and 13 is probably fixed because of who you've got available. Obviously, it depends on Rory's injury, but let's assume that they took him off more precautionary. I feel like Hutch Freeman is where they're going to go.
Yeah, I agree.
And then
For this
I
game, yeah.
And then I feel like the back three of Ram, Tadaro, Hendy, how they performed at the weekend was ridiculous. I feel like that probably picks itself, like just based on kind of 4 minutes, like momentum, etc. But like there are still, even there are perhaps some question marks. I know that Ollie was back on the injured list, so whether they'll, even if he's back fit, would they risk that? I don't know. So there's interesting questions, but
definitely the back three was so good and they're all so talented. And then there's the whole sort of enigma of Furbank,
I
and
was going to say, where's Furbs? Yeah.
you know, like he's one of our best players if he's fully fit, but all the rumours around him, is that a factor in selection? I don't know.
I think it was Saturday. You're not going to play him against the team he's signed for, I wouldn't say.
But then, you know, Hendy has an absolute stormer and, you know, running diagonally at straight lines, you know, and setting up. And if he can, you know, if he can sort out that one question mark around his ability under the high ball, and the only way he's going to do that is by actually being exposed to it and playing, you know, he's a complete fullback, isn't he, really? He's not quite the ball player that Furbank is, but as a strike runner, he's outrageous.
And you also have
it's so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you also just have the fact that like Furbs hasn't played for 2 weeks and we've won and we've played really well. And now that's not to say you wouldn't want him. But I'm not saying that. But you know, we've got a winning team with who has played the past couple of weeks, and so you know, it almost makes, like you said, the argument of like, yeah, it'd be great to have Furbs in, but is it an absolute necessity? Like sometimes becomes the question. I'd still argue he's the all-around stronger fullback out of the two, but I also do kind of understand the fact that, like, I know we keep saying if he is going, but
he is.
He is. I think it's pretty. It's almost like as confirmed can be without it actually being confirmed that he is. And so you then end up with a thing of like, does it factor into selection? Not in any kind of like punishing kind of way, but more the fact of like, we're going to need Hendy probably at fullback in a more permanent sense from next season onwards. That does it just make the most sense to start going with him now and building him up now? Like, and I'm not saying either way is the right choice over the other, but it definitely does. I really do think it does factor into discussions of like, what do we do?
Well, that's
So,
the thing.
yeah.
I know you mentioned punishment, and I'm not trying to say we would do that because he's a Saints legend. He's come from boy to man, but I've always said I don't think you should be allowed to announce signings till like way towards the end of the season, because in your head, I'm not going to say he's not. It's not every man. He's dedicated. He's our captain. But are you going to put in 100%, knowing that you're not playing for that team next year, and you're not? No, but can you back? Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like you get an injury.
It's not possible though, is it? Yeah, but it's not possible to like wait till after the year before you sign a new contract. Like they've got to do it as early as they can, and but you're right. Like suddenly your mind goes elsewhere. Potentially, it's very difficult to
focus on that team.
On it. And
so, are you just going to say, "Hang on, right? He's still a world-class fullback, but are we going to train up Hendy because that's where we're going to need him next year? Because we're not going to have Furbs." So, you just said,
Furbs is going to be more motivated than ever to perform because he needs to get in that Six Nations squad so that he can justify his England contract to make this decision to go to Quins worth it, doesn't he?
Please don't think I'm not talking bad about him because the man's a legend. He's still our best fullback and he's a saint through and through and always will be. And we get, from what we hear, why he's left is because of the length of contract. And it's all about his future and his family and all that. But it's just one of them. It's like, you want to move on to the future, so pick who's going to be playing there. It might, like you said, you're going to pick Furbank. If you're going to pick a full strength side, you have Furbank at fullback because he is the best.
Yeah, he is the best fullback we have. I think it all does come down to does loyalty exist? Like, do we want to create an environment where loyalty is rewarded and loyalty exists? Because I think it's fair to say Saints have done the best by Furbank over the last few years, specifically with his injuries. You know, they've looked after him exceptionally well when it comes down to a decision making in terms of contract, they don't seem to want to give him the contract that potentially he thinks
But
he wants. So
they've never done that though, have they? I'm not trying to just say George.
yeah, they have
Anyone
a
that's
hard
close
rule.
to
So
30, they only give 1 year, don't they? They've always seemed
yeah,
to stick to
And
that.
you also have to put it in like the context of like not just this season, but like from what I understand, like both Freeman and Pollock are up for renewals again next season.
yeah,
And you do literally have to balance it against like
yeah,
what is the best for not just this one individual, which you want to take into account as much as possible, what's best for the team. And if someone had to say like, right, you have no choice, you've got to make the decision of you keep Furbank, but potentially next year it makes it more difficult to keep one of Freeman and Pollock, or you let Furbank go and it means that you have a much higher chance of keeping both of them. I make the decision that means you have a higher chance of keeping Freeman and Pollock, just simply because
Age. Just age.
yeah, it's longevity and how much more you're likely to get out of them. Like the reality is that again, but we'll say if, but I'm putting it in quotation marks because it still hasn't been announced. But let's say if/when he goes, he's got maybe one more England contract left, and then like probably one more 3-year contract in England left, and then you've got to think that post World Cup he maybe does another contract in France to get some money before retire. Whereas like Tommy and particularly Pollock are like so much on the young side. You've got 2, 3 for Pollock, maybe even 4 contracts worth of that you can keep him for if you're able to do it. And so I think people sometimes think of it like really in a vacuum, but like they're not just thinking about Furbank and this season. They're thinking about what negotiations are we having to enter into next year? Where does our money need to realistically go? And as horrible as this is going to sound, and I don't mean it in this way, but quite frankly, if it's a choice between like keeping Furbank now or keeping them 2 next season, it's actually quite an easy decision for me.
yeah.
I'm not saying it's not easy to physically have to make the decision to go and say really sorry we can only offer you 1 year. Like that is going to have been really tough and difficult for them. But yeah, you kind of have to weigh those things up, and I think who we've kept and who we really want to continue to keep really does factor into some of these decisions.
Yeah, no, Saints are ruthless with their contracts, right? Because they've got to make the most out of the limited resources that they're playing with. Like, so we're not one of the top spenders, but we outperform that every year, and it's because of that ruthless nature, right? Because spending top end money in aging players is not the wisest decision, right? It's almost out of sentiment that you do that. And you look at over the last number of years, the players that have got to that age, and we've not fought to keep, or we've probably tried to keep them, but we've not been going beyond what we're prepared to pay.
Yeah.
Ludlam, Cobus, Tom Weir,
Even Courtney.
Even Courtney.
Well, I think Courtney was a different one. I think the offer was like not even challengeable.
Yeah.
I think they would have tried
exactly,
everything. I think they would have tried to keep him as much as they could, but he's the GOAT, right? But most other players, club captains on multiple occasions get to an age and they go, right, this is it. You get 1 year. This is the fee. We won't go beyond that because it's putting money you're investing money in an investment that's not potentially as rewarding as investing it elsewhere in the squad, like Jess said. And it's just the brutal reality of professional sport.
And it isn't even just like, it's probably not just even age. It's also a case of like age plus, I'd say at the moment, like the squad depth and the talent we've got for like each position, you've got 3 or 4 people that are challenging for those contracts in those positions. Like the reality is tough decisions have to be made. Like you look at the squad we've got now and some of the talent we've got coming up, like we are not keeping hold of all of them because it just isn't physically possible. And so you are having to make decisions. But I will stick up for him a little bit here, Ferbs, because there was a lot of commentary online of, he wasn't at the game. He must have just been watching it telly. He was there.
He was there.
For people that are listening, for anyone that isn't aware, he was there. I walked past him before the game, and then post game, he was walking on the pitch over to the team. Like he was there. He was watching. He was still part of the, squad.
Yeah.
He wasn't hiding at home watching it on the telly.
Let's be really honest and say he's a top bloke, a top player, giving everything for the club. But like with Lewis, who was an exceptional human being as well, at a certain point they've got to make a decision what they feel is right for them, right? And I think when the money comes into play, I think they're all advised a certain way.
Well, you got to think. You think what happened to his arm as well? His arm, that was a very bad break, and he nearly didn't come back from it. So you got to think, if someone's offering you 3 years of money, you're going to take it, aren't you? Even loyalty does, but in sport, it's a short career.
It's a short career
as well. We were just talking about people who we signed. you've got to remember who we have just re-signed as well. Like
Yeah.
Smith, Mitchell, Coles. They're not going to be on cheap contracts, so they're going to be taken out of next year's budget as well. So it's scales.
Even a Tom Lockett, like this new contract he's just signed will definitely be worth more than the previous one, just because he's now made Premiership matches, he's been in European matches, so you've got all this young talent coming up that's demanding a higher wage. I'm sorry, but the money's got to come from somewhere. It's not it's not a never ending.
I reckon in reality that some of those deals that they've signed are probably actually bargains, because the offer that Saints have at this point in time is higher than a lot of other clubs. We're competing at the top end of 2 competitions, and there's seemingly an amazingly good atmosphere. We've got some of the best coaches in the world. We're selling out stadiums every week, right? This is an exceptional club to play for at the moment. There's not even a comparison. Like, I don't want to fixate on Furbanks, right? Because I'm not complaining or blaming or anything like that. But he's literally got a decision between a financial stronger offer, but playing for Quins, who are not going to be successful for a period of time. Fan base is very different to our fan base. Higher cost of living in London, etc., etc. Potentially, because you're not playing at a better club, risking your England contract, as opposed to playing weaker financial offer, but you'll be playing for the best team in the country in front of your home support that is banging every week. The offer is not just about finances, and in 10 years, 20 years time, they'll be fine, right? They will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, even before the insane offer for Courtney came in, like, I believe, from what I'm understanding, his previous contract, he took a bit of a pay cut because he wanted to stay. And he wanted to play with this team and be involved in this team and help the team get silverware. And he was, it was a fantastic team to play for. We won the league, and so he did in fact take that slight pay cut to stay. And then obviously, like I said, the next offer came, and it was just, from what I understand, the whole offer was worth like over £1 million, and it's just not. We were never going to be able to compete with that. But there are some players that probably are staying when they could maybe get a little bit elsewhere, because like you said, it isn't just the financial, it's a financial plus. Like, are you going to be able to keep competing in Europe at the top of the league, getting these knockout games, these extra fixtures, getting yourself on England's radar by playing for the teams that are performing well? So yeah, at the moment we're definitely getting, definitely it is gonna get tougher. Like, obviously we re-signed Pollock what would have been a couple seasons ago by next season, and obviously the difference in wage that he'll be expecting next season versus 2 is going to be vastly different. And so that's the importance of why they only offer 1-year contracts to people that are above, when they hit a certain age, /level, whatever terminology you want to use, that you have got, it's tough to run a rugby club, and the money doesn't grow on trees. Like, yes, we don't spend up to the cap, and people go, well, why don't you? It's because the team is still making losses, so we have to be careful. We all know the story of London Irish, of Worcester, of Wasps. Like, that's not that far back. And so sometimes I think when people are complaining online, as people do, about, oh well, we want to keep hold of XYZ, I was like, how?
Yeah.
How?
Put that into context. 11 home games in a row, fully sold out. Biggest TV deal they've ever done. Biggest sponsorship deals they've ever done. The Cinch deal's the biggest deal in rugby, and we're still losing money. And we're not spending up to the cap. Right? There's something fundamentally wrong with the finances in rugby for that to be the case. Right? But that's what it is. To say the point is, Courtney Lawes had a side, like you said, I think he took a pay cut to stay on through the COVID years and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But the England tours he went on, the Lions tours he went on, being involved in England, playing on good money for Saints, he could have retired before he went to France and been financially in an exceptional position, right? So, and everyone's got to pay tax on their earnings. So going away and getting paid more money or over a 3-year period or whatever it is, you've got to put that into context. It's not going to be life-changing. And next year, it wouldn't be that he gets nothing. He could go off to France next year or after a World Cup, right? So, I don't think people, people have got to make the right decisions, but sometimes plotting your career path so that you have your best career will actually financially benefit you more than taking the next contract. If Andy Good hadn't chased the money that he did throughout his career, and he'd stayed at Leicester all that time and won 1 billion trophies, do you not think he would have played a lot more for England? But he played for Worcester for years. He was never going to get selected for England while he was playing for Worcester. Those things, you've got to look at that stuff. But anyway, I think we need to get onto a prediction and let people go, because we have been talking a while. So yeah, Sai is on form of his life. He's got another win. He got the margin right, and he got Tommy as a try scorer. So yeah, another win for Sai. And as you won, Sai, you can go first this week.
Oh, that's going to drop me out. Right. I'm going to have to go hard with this because we're in form. I'm going to go 34-35. I'm just going to back the boys, and I've got to go Tommy. I've got to go Tommy.
If that happens, I'll still be happy, but I will be dead.
That'll be the game of the century, won't it?
Yeah.
Pin drop goal at the end.
Is it me next?
Yeah, you'd go, Jess.
Oh, okay, I'm gonna go for Tadaro because I just feel like I have to. I feel like the Italians, brought the Italians in. They're on the form of their life. It's exceptional. Score wise, I think it's going to be high scoring as well because I think us and them really know how to put it about the park. I'm gonna. I'm going to go 40-42. I'm going to go higher.
40-42. Jesus, if that happens, I'll suffocate because I won't be able to breathe.
I think I'll have a heart attack.
Optimistic, but I just thought, the boys are on fire. I know they're world class, the other team, but
yeah,
I'm gonna go slightly lower, only slightly lower because I think sometimes 2 attacks end up cancelling themselves out a bit, and you get focus defensive or whatever. I'm gonna go 27-32. So it's still a big scoring game, but it's not insanity like you two have gone.
Insanity. I'm only slightly higher than you.
I'm really tempted to say Pollock. But it would not be the sensible decision, when I've got the likes of Mitchell or Colsey. Even Colsey would be my next choice, but I'm going to go Pollock just because, he is the chosen one, and if we're going to win in France against Bordeaux, it's going to be led by the charge from the chosen one, isn't it? So I'm going to go with that. But yeah, I can't wait. We've had every game has almost been nervous going into them because we're supposed to be winning these games, other than the Bath game where it was, it was crazy. But this one, I just can't wait. This is the biggest game Saints have been involved in since the end of last year, since we probably played Bordeaux last time. So, what a game it's going to be. But anyway, so thank you very much for listening, everyone. Happy New Year once again. It should be an absolute cracker in France, and anyone going, safe travels, wrap up warm, and take your cagoule with you because I think it might be wet and rainy.
Oh no!
But I've been Charles. Jess has been Jess. Simon. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you.